In the past 20 years, Bob and I have not started a conversation without him first asking about my children and how Lori and I were doing. Bob has a compassion that is needed to sit on a board such as the Living Breath Foundation. The foundation would like to thank Bob for the time spent over the last 13 years. Lori and I would like to thank Bob for his friendship. Bob Rosenthal, please come up.
Most of you know it's always dangerous to give me a microphone. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chris and Lori. In my mind, it's sort of strange that I'm being recognized tonight when what I've done pales in comparison to what many of you here have done. And in particular, what Chris, Lori, Nick, and Melissa have done, both individually and through the foundation. What really boggles my mind is to think that no one has ever done for Chris and Lori what they're doing for me tonight. It makes no sense. Actually, it makes sense because they're the ones who select who gets honored. So at the risk of upsetting their plans tonight, I'd like to turn the tables. I'd like to spend my time not talking about what I may have done, not talking about the importance of giving back to your community, but instead, I want to talk about what Chris, Lori, Nick, and Melissa have given, and the many, many lives that they're giving, both individually and through the foundation, have touched. Most of you are aware of the great help this foundation has been for so many young people with CF and their families, but I doubt many of you have any idea of the countless hours upon hours the Papajorgas family have dedicated to assuring not just the success of this foundation, but also assuring that whenever financial or other support was desperately needed by a CF family, that need was fulfilled each and every time. This foundation was an idea that grew from Chris and Lori realizing how little was being done nationally, locally, and internationally for CF. They lived with this reality. They suffered emotionally and financially with their children fighting this disease daily, not occasionally, but daily. And they knew too few people, too few pharmaceutical companies, too few insurance companies, too few people in the medical community were giving CF the attention that they knew their children and others like them needed and deserved. They came to learn that 30,000 cases in the USA were just too few for anyone to spend the needed time, research, and money on finding a cure. And when so many other people were suffering with other more prevalent diseases, it's understandable. So what did Chris and Lori do back in 2007? When faced with this reality, they went to work. From their own experiences, they saw so many areas of need, and as a result, they created the Living Breath Foundation to address those needs. They created a foundation that they envisioned would provide help that insurance companies and others would not provide. Hotel rooms for parents when their children were hospitalized hundreds of miles from home for months or weeks at a time. Tutors for hospitalized kids missing school while hospitalized. Welcome packages for every child hospitalized. Gas cards for parents so they could travel with their children for treatment. And countless other needs of each CF child and family that when they encountered the need, they came to Chris and Lori and this foundation, and they were never turned down. I can tell you, as one of those people who always seems to have an idea that I think is worth pursuing, that very few ideas become reality. And those that do generally fade away with time and lost interest. Well, as you can tell from the size and the quality of this event, The fact that the Living Breath Foundation is still breathing life into the lives of so many people, so many CF families, some 13 years after the idea was first born, is truly amazing, and a testament to the Papajorgas family. So in reality, I should not be singled out. There are many others like me. There are many others in this room. But frankly, there are all too few people like Chris and Lori Papajorgas. So while I'm honored for the recognition of the few accomplishments I've attained and for the few people whose lives I may have touched in doing so, the real recognition tonight needs to go to the real heroes in this, I was going to say room, but in this, out here tonight. And that's Chris and Lori and Nick. And one person not physically here, but certainly here in spirit, Melissa. So please help me recognize and honor this family, because quite frankly, it's long overdue. And they are so deserving of our appreciation, our thanks, and our recognition. And I know Nick's not here because of the COVID risks, but Chris and Lori, of course, are. And Chris and Lori, stand up and let everybody recognize you. So to wrap up my comments tonight, I want to thank those of you who came here tonight for your support, including, first of all, my wife, Carol, my stepdaughter, Lauren, my great local friends, my law firm, and my two oldest friends whose friendship I've shared for about 70 years, David and Gary's wife, Rose. I hope your coming to this event becomes a regular on each of your schedules in future years. It's really important that each of us make the choice and the effort to give back. You heard what Jacques had to say. It's so easy to find a cause to believe in. It's so easy to find a cause that needs your help. You don't need to give money. You can also give back through efforts, through dedication, and through time. And the slight burden that giving back may have on your life is nothing compared to the impact those efforts will have on the lives of those who you have touched by your giving. And I do realize that I'm preaching to the choir when I say that, because it's obvious each of you have already began the practice of giving back by your presence here tonight and your support of the Living Breath Foundation and the families that are dealing with this terrible disease. And for that, I thank you. I believe that contrary to the betting line, I stayed within my allotted time, which is always a problem for me. And I want to thank Chris and Lori for everything you've done and for all the lives you've touched.
We've got a little bit something here for Bob to remember the night and remember, the 12 or 13 years. This award says appreciation presented to Robert Rosenthal in recognition of your outstanding service as a member of the Living Breath Foundation Board of Directors 2008-2020, presented September 11th, 2021 from the Living Breath Foundation. Thank you.
Real quick note, it's getting chillier out here. These blankets, they're yours. So use them, enjoy them, take them home with you. Lori doesn't want to bunch them all up after the fact. Take them home, please. Thank you, Bob, for the speech. That was wonderful. We do have another speaker coming up. We are lucky enough to have a number of people living with CF with us here tonight to share their perspective, their insight about all of the challenges that they face, but also the successes that they have and all of the progress that they have made through treatment and through the help of the Living Breath Foundation. Whether it be, as Bob mentioned and as Sandy mentioned earlier, there's so many different ways that the Living Breath Foundation helps. Gas cards, rental assistance for people who are away near the hospital and cannot work back at home. So many different ways, and one of those ways that the Living Breath Foundation helps people living with CF is through educational scholarships. Our next speaker is one of the recipients of those scholarships. Abby Robinson lives with cystic fibrosis, and with the help of the Living Breath Foundation and all of your generosity, and also from her own determination, she has really thrived, earning her degree in sports medicine from the University of California, Santa Barbara. That was this summer. Now she's going on to get her master's degree. Abby is a scholarship recipient through the help of the Living Breath Foundation. She received a scholarship in each of her years at UC Santa Barbara, and now taking that next step, going for the master's. I would like to welcome up Abby. She's going to give us a little bit of insight on her journey and all that the Living Breath Foundation has meant to her.
Good evening, everyone. How is everyone doing tonight? So thank you all for being here tonight, and of course thank you to Chris and Lori for the opportunity to speak. This foundation is incredibly near and dear to my heart, and I'm extremely honored to be standing up here today. For those who don't know me, after Drea's beautiful introduction, my name is Abby Robinson. Some of you may have watched me grow up at this event from year to year, all the way back to the evening in Barcelona over a decade ago where I sold my handmade pot holders. Up to today, I'm 23 years old. I proudly hold a bachelor's degree from the University of California, Santa Barbara. Go Gauchos! I'm currently in grad school getting my master's degree, and I have cystic fibrosis. I was diagnosed at 4 months old. I was taken up to Stanford Hospital as a baby with a rash that wouldn't go away. Nothing helped, and I got sicker and sicker. I developed severe infections in my bloodstream, and I was put into the intensive care unit. That night, I nearly died. 2 days later, I almost went into cardiac arrest and was put into a medically induced coma. I was put on a machine that breathes for me so my body could have a break. But my lungs were so fragile that that machine blew holes in them. 2 nights later, I almost died again. Each organ in my body was slowly shutting down, and I had less than a 5% chance of surviving. But something people didn't realize about this tiny little baby, that those around me have now come to realize maybe more times than they would like, is that she was pretty damn stubborn. I had things to do in this world, and it wasn't my time to go yet, so I fought back. With the help of the best medical care in the world, I finally went home after 7 weeks at Stanford. Growing up, I was miraculously healthy. My parents were strict about treatments, pills, and exercise, and I thrived in spite of CF. I was so healthy that I never really understood how scary a disease CF is. During college, my health took a turn for the worse. Suddenly, I was balancing antibiotics and hospital stays on top of a demanding education, 2 jobs, and an immersive internship. Living Breath provided me with scholarships, so I didn't need to worry about money on top of everything else. With their help, I was able to be in a clean apartment instead of a small dorm. I was able to have gas money to drive to constant appointments and ER visits. And I was able to afford to eat the large diet needed by a CFer while still on a college budget. And in 2018, Living Breath saved my life. I was studying abroad in London when my vest stopped working. My vest knocks mucus off the walls of my lungs so I can cough it out, and it is essential to my good health. I ended up in the hospital fighting for my life, just like when I was a baby. But this time, I knew what was going on. What I didn't know was that Chris and Lori were working behind the scenes, calling companies in hopes that someone could get a vest to me in London. When I was finally healthy enough to be discharged, there was a brand new battery-powered vest on my doorstep at no cost to either my parents or my insurance, all thanks to Chris and Lori. With this vest, I was able to finish my semester in London with no other health problems. In the years that followed, I still struggled to stay healthy, doing hours of treatments daily and enduring what became an average of 4 hospitalizations per year. But the whole time, we were hearing about this drug that was going through clinical trials. It was performing incredibly well and showed great promise for people with my type of CF, but it wasn't available to the public yet. I dreamed of what life could be like if this medication got approved, what a normal life could be. But honestly, I didn't even know what that meant. The coughing, treatments, pills, hospitalizations, mid-40s life expectancy, that was my normal. Growing up, on every 11/11, shooting star, or birthday candle, I wished for a miracle to make my CF better. And on October 21st, 2019, my wish finally came true. That day, I got a text from my dad that gave me chills. The drug that we had genuine hope could be my miracle had been approved by the FDA for public use 5 months ahead of schedule. We knew it at the time as VX445, but by now we all know it as Trikafta. On December 12th, 2019, I cheersed my family with a glass of champagne, and I took my first dose. I spent the next week coughing 22 years of mucus out of my lungs. It was painful and it was hard. But then, just as quickly as the coughing had started, it stopped, and it never came back again. For the first time in my life, I could breathe deeply. I felt the little air passages in my lungs that had never been opened before, taking their first breaths. I could sing in the car at the top of my lungs without launching into a coughing fit. I could walk up the stairs without getting winded. I asked myself, is this what it's like for other people? Is this what it's like to breathe? I felt like a baby bird spreading its wings for the first time. I started running because I finally had the lung function to do it. Last year, I ran a half marathon, something I could have never dreamed of before Trikafta.
Oh, girl.
Under careful medical guidance, I was able to taper and then completely stop my treatment regimen. I don't take antibiotics anymore, and this November will mark 2 years since I've been hospitalized. For those science folks out there, in the year and a half since I started Trikafta, my FEV1, the major measure of lung function in CF patients, has never dropped below 105%. It's hard to put into words how it feels to have your life change seemingly overnight. We had so much hope for Trikafta, and it exceeded every single expectation. Trikafta gave me hope for a future that I never thought I would get. Now I can look forward to working in the field of my dreams, getting married, starting a family, and, most importantly, getting a dog. These are life milestones that I never thought I would reach. The Abby that I once knew, who was in and out of the hospital and couldn't make it another hour without a cough attack, is gone. For the last year and a half, a new Abby has instead taken her place. This Abby is healthy, confident, and ready to take charge of her life. This new Abby is not defined by her disease, but instead goes weeks on end without a single thought of CF. I hope that the doctors who took care of tiny baby Abby, who was wrapped in soft blankets, struggling to breathe as her little body shut down, could see me today. Trikafta was so much more than I could have ever imagined. It changed my life, along with the lives of thousands of other people with CF. But that didn't come cheaply. Hundreds of millions of dollars went into the research that developed the drug, and without insurance, Trikafta costs $311,000 per year. That works out to a staggering $852 per day to keep me alive with this quality of life for the rest of my life. And I'm one of the lucky ones. Trikafta works for me, but that isn't the case for everyone else. There are still so many CFers hoping, waiting, praying on their miracle drug too. There are still millions going into research, and the drugs that result will still cost thousands. And that's where Living Breath comes in. The scholarships and assistance awarded by Living Breath take off a huge financial burden from CF patients and their families. Living Breath changes lives every single day with their assistance, outreach, and support. And you all help them do just that. Being here tonight, donating, supporting in any way you can, you all are a huge reason this foundation is so successful. I would not be where I am today without the help of Living Breath and without the generosity of donors like all of you who help them fulfill their goal of making a life with cystic fibrosis so much easier. To conclude, I would simply like to say thank you. Thank you to Chris and Lori for starting this life-changing foundation. Your efforts have saved so many lives and touched more than you know. To all of you here tonight, thank you. Thank you for showing up, for donating your time, hearts, and money to such a worthy cause. And finally, to the incomparable Melissa. Thank you for being my mentor. Thank you for showing me, a young girl struggling with her diagnosis, how to survive and thrive in spite of CF. I hope wherever you are, you're surfing the best waves and finally breathing easy. Thank you.